What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video, I'm going to be testing some 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum bullets. So I'm going to be testing the Sierra 400 grain jacketed soft points and the Woodleigh Weldcores in 400 grain. And I'm going to be hand loading these bullets to right around 1650 feet per second to 1700 feet per second, which is going to be between 2400 and 2600 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. And I'm going to be shooting them at some 2x10 framing lumber and also ceramic tiles and water jugs. So I'm going to do 2 penetration tests, and we're going to see which one of these bullets penetrates better in the wood and in the tile plus water jugs, and which one of them retains the most weight and has the best expansion. Okay, so 2 big differences between these bullets. The Sierra bullet is not bonded, while the Woodleigh is bonded. Okay, so that's a huge difference. So we're going to be comparing a bonded bullet to a non-bonded bullet. Okay, so here we have the Sierra 400 grain jacketed soft point, and then here we have the Woodleigh Weldcore. Both have a pretty similar sized me-plat, so it's going to be really cool to see which one of these penetrates better, which one of these retains the most weight, and which one of these expands the most. Okay, and the firearm I'm going to be using for this test is my Smith & Wesson Model 500, and this is the 6.5-inch barrel version. They actually don't sell these anymore, unfortunately. They've been discontinued, but I think this is the best general purpose Smith & Wesson Model 500 with the 6.5-inch barrel. It's not too long, not too short, and you can still get up to 2600 foot-pounds of muzzle energy with either buffalo bore or if you hand load. Now, I've hand loaded these to, like I said, around 1650 feet per second to 1700 feet per second. The Woodleigh Weldcore, I can get up to 1650 feet per second, which is right around 2400 foot-pounds of muzzle energy out of a 6.5-inch barrel, guys. That is just ridiculous. And then the Sierra, I can get up to 1700 feet per second without any major pressure signs, and that's almost 2600 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Okay, so let's see what happens here with the framing lumber. What I did was I cut some 2x10s to about a foot in length, and I screwed them all together. So we're going to see how many of the 2x10s these bullets penetrate through, and also what kind of and then I'm going to line up some water jugs and just put 1/4 inch thick ceramic tile in front of the water jugs, and the ceramic tile just functions to kind of help expand the bullet faster so it doesn't penetrate through all of the water jugs, and basically requires me to use less water jugs. And also it simulates like if there was a bone and you shot through a game animal's, let's say, shoulder bone, the tile will simulate that because it's hard. Okay, so it's going to be really interesting to see which one wins. And I will say that the Sierra bullets are probably 50% cheaper and readily available versus the Woodleigh bullets, more expensive and harder to find because they come from Australia. Now, Woodleigh bullets are very well known for their safari grade bullets, so definitely a reputable company. So let's see what happens here, guys. What do you think? Take a guess. Are we gonna we have an American company versus an Australian company which one will come out on top. Let's see what happens. All right, guys, 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, 400 grain Sierra jacketed soft point, hand loads around 1,700 feet per second, muzzle velocity 2,600 foot-pounds, and it looks like we penetrated through 5 water bottles, and I found our slug. So look at how far some of these bottles are over there, about 10 feet away or so. Just the energy tossed those bottles all the way out there. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's a hole in the 6th one, but it looks like it kind of just punched a hole and then it bounced off to the side, because I found it on the side like 10 feet away over there. So it just bounced off the 6th one. It didn't actually penetrate, but it went through 5 of these bottles plus that tile, and that tile is pretty tough. And here's our slug. Check that out. Look at how it peeled back nicely. Wow, that is a huge mushroom. Check that out. This looks like a 12 gauge shotgun slug. This thing would do massive damage. Look at that. That is just ridiculous. Look at how it peeled all the way back. 5 of these water bottles plus a 1/4 inch thick tile, and it pretty much held together. The jacket and the core did not separate, and that's with an impact velocity of 1,700 feet per second. I mean, I was just 5 or 10 feet away from these water bottles, so it's pretty impressive that everything held together with such a high impact velocity. So I'm impressed, guys. And you can see all these petals are still on the bullet. They didn't tear off or break off or anything like that. They're still all attached. So that's really good. So let's weigh this thing and let's measure the expansion. But I mean, that looks like a 12 gauge shotgun slug. That's impressive, guys. Just want to show you guys the annihilation. Look at that. Look at how these bottles were just completely annihilated. Look at these exit holes here. Just absolutely insane energy dump. And we actually also split our wood here from the energy. Guys, 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, 400 grain Woodleigh Weldcore, 1,650 feet per second versus ceramic tile and water bottles. And so it looks like it penetrated through 5 water bottles, and obviously it went through the tile. But look at where one of the water bottles is, all the way out there, about 10 feet away or so from the target area. And look at one of these water bottles here was just totally annihilated. Look at this thing. Just completely destroyed. Absolutely insane. But here's our slug. This is what our slug looks like. Absolutely insane expansion. Look at that. Probably about 1 inch diameter. Looks like a 12 gauge shotgun slug now. Check that out. Looks like it held together, lived up to its name, Weldcore. So definitely held together. You can see the jacket is still with the core. So let's weigh this thing and see what kind of weight retention we got, and let's measure it and see what kind of expansion we got. But I'm pretty impressed. Penetrating through 5 water bottles plus a ceramic tile, and it maintained a straight line. Here's the 5th water bottle. Okay. And just totally annihilating everything else. All right, guys, here were my hits. Smith & Wesson Model 500, Handloads, 400 grain Sierra jacketed soft point, 1700 feet per second, 400 grain Woodleigh Weldcore, 1650 feet per second. And look at what they did to the wood here. They split the wood just from the energy and the expansion. So these three were my hits with the Sierra, and then these three were my hits with the Woodleigh. And look at how they split the wood up. So let's take this block of wood apart and see how many boards they penetrated through. Let's see what kind of expansion we got, what kind of weight retention we got. So stay tuned. All right, guys, I wanted to just go over the results of the test with the 2x10 framing lumber. So looks like both of them penetrated through about the same amount of lumber. They both penetrated through about 4 or 5 pieces of Douglas fir framing lumber. So here we have the first board, and you can see the muzzle energy just split this board down the middle, okay? Just from the expansion of the bullets and the energy. So the bottom three were the Sierra and the top three were the Weldcore. So here's the first board and here's our second board. You can see the board just got completely split apart, but look at the size of these holes, guys. These holes are just insane. And the Sierra holes seem to be slightly larger than the Weldcore holes, okay? But still, I mean, not enough of a difference to really matter. You know, anything hit by this is going to succumb to massive hemorrhaging, okay? Look at these holes. Look at this. I mean, this is just insane, guys. This is like, you know, an 1.5-inch diameter hole. Okay, so that's why these big bore handguns are so effective, because they leave huge holes, okay, in anything that they hit. Here's the third board, okay, more big holes here. And here we have the fourth board, okay, and we have one of the Sierras stuck here in the fourth board. We also have one of the Weldcores stuck here. Okay, let me just show you guys up close. So here's one of the Sierra bullets. And we're going to take these bullets out and take a closer look at them and see what kind of weight retention they got. And here's one of the Weldcores. Okay, so penetrating just through about 4 of these Douglas fir boards, okay? And then here we have the fifth board, and we have 2 Sierras down here and 2 Weldcores up here. You can see they're actually loose. So here's one of the Weldcores. Look at this huge chunk of lead. Absolutely insane, guys. And I have big hands, and you know, this is a massive chunk of lead. And then here we have one of the Sierras down here. Okay, so we're going to take a closer look at these bullets. We're going to weigh them and see what kind of weight retention we got, but basically the same amount of penetration in wood between the Sierra and the Woodleigh Weldcore. All right, guys, so let's weigh these bullets and see what kind of expansion we got. So here we have the Woodleigh Weldcores, and then here we have the Sierras. So let's start with the Woodleigh Weldcore and Sierra that I fired at the water jugs with the tile in front. So you can see a huge difference in the expansion. Just visually, you can see that the Sierra peeled back a lot further, and you can see that the Woodleigh flattened out a lot more. So definitely a little bit of a difference in the way that they expanded. I'm not sure if that would have any effect really practically in the real world, but visually you can see they both basically expanded to the same size. So let's weigh the Woodleigh and see what kind of weight retention we got. So 357.6 grains. That's really good. And let's see the Sierra. 387.1. Wow. So the Sierra, which is not bonded and was traveling at 50 feet per second faster, retained more weight than the bonded Woodleigh Weldcore going 50 feet per second slower. So this is why we do these tests, guys, because if you don't do these kinds of tests, you would never know, and you might end up spending more money on something like the Woodleigh Weldcore thinking that it's better than the Sierra because the Sierra is not bonded. But in this situation, the Sierra actually did better. It retained more weight. So pretty interesting. So now let's move on to the bullets that I fired at the wood. So let's start with the Woodleigh Weldcores. So here's the first Woodleigh Weldcore. 384.7 grains. Here's the second Woodleigh Weldcore. 316.1 grains. And here's the third Woodleigh Weldcore. 370 grains. All right, and now let's see the Sierras. Here's the first Sierra. 339 grains. Here's the second Sierra, 345 grains. And then here's the third Sierra, 375.5 grains. Okay, so let's measure the expansion now. I got my calipers here. All right, guys, so here's our Woodleigh Weldcore. Let's see what we got. Wow, 0.866 roughly. That is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane expansion. So at the most, we got right around 0.866. At the most, 0.858. Now let's see the Sierra. What we got with the Sierra. We got 0.808, 0.797, 0.772, 0.792. So the Woodleigh Weldcore definitely expanding a good amount more, expanding about 100 thousandths more than the Sierra. And let's check the Woodleighs that I fired at the wood. Got 0.853 on this one, 0.83. It's about 0.85 on that one. I don't know what happened to this one. This one might have hit like a knot or something. 0.75, 0.8, and we got 0.85, 0.845, and here we got 0.724, 0.85, and let's check the Sierras now. You got 0.746, 0.61, 0.83, and then here we have another Sierra. We got 0.739, 0.713, and then the last Sierra fired at the wood, 0.871, 0.75. So it seems like the Woodleigh Weldcore expands a little bit better than the Sierra bullets. It seems like the Sierra retains a little bit more weight, which is interesting because it's not bonded and it's also traveling 50 feet per second faster. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Stay tuned to my channel for more 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum content. Check out my 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum playlist for all of my 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum videos, including penetration tests like this one. I'll leave a link in the top right corner. But overall, I think I'm going to stick with the Sierra bullets simply because they're more affordable and they're readily available, and they seem to perform a little bit better than the Weldcores. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, and until next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.